I have always believed that trust is not just the foundation of any relationship, but a kind of vow that we make to each other in silence. Like, I'm handing you my heart and soul, and I believe that you won't trample on them even if you can. But as it turned out, it was this blind trust that became my most painful weak point. The one who swears his love to you may be the one who sticks the knife the deepest. My wife's name is Emma. We've been together for almost 10 years. It wasn't always easy, but I really loved her, to the point of trembling, to the point of sleepless nights, to the point of meaningless compromises. We've been through a layoff, loans, 2 failed pregnancies, and poverty. And so, when life seemed to be stabilizing, she said she wanted to start seeing a therapist. Emma explained it simply. They say, since childhood, there has been a burden on her soul that she has long wanted to work out. I didn't ask any questions. On the contrary, he supported me. I even found a good center for her myself and paid for the first series of sessions, even though at that moment we were literally counting every penny. It seemed to me that this is true love, to invest not only in everyday things, but also in the soul of a loved one. At first, everything went as expected. She really became a little softer, hugged me more often, smiled in the morning. I even thought that therapy was helping, and I was proud that she had chosen the path of self-discovery. But then the strangeness started. Little things. It's nothing that you usually don't pay attention to, unless you start to feel like there's a third person between you, invisible but noticeably cold. The first thing that caught my eye was that she suddenly started hiding her phone. Just suddenly. Instead of throwing it on the bed next to her like before, she always took it with her now, even to the bathroom. I changed the password. When I once asked, what happened? Why did you change the code? She joked that allegedly applications are asked to update protection more often. I nodded and smiled, but I felt the first crack inside. We've never had any secrets. Until this moment. Then the details disappeared. Previously, she was willing to share what she discussed at the sessions, but now her answers have become superficial. We were talking about anxiety, she said, and abruptly changed the subject. She even said it outright once. You won't understand anyway. He understands. He. Not therapist, not doctor, but he. My heart sank. It felt like you were standing in your own apartment, but the walls had become someone else's. Everything familiar feels like it's been replaced. And the worst part is that you can't prove to yourself that you're not going crazy. You're just watching a man you've hugged 1,000 times slip out of your arms. But he does it with such dexterity that you can't even grab the hem of his clothes. One night, when she fell asleep next to me, I saw her phone screen flash. It was 014. I remember that. A message appeared on the screen. Same time Thursday. Miss you already winking face. Sender's name, M. Wellness Studio. The world froze. My fists clenched. I turned slowly to her, and she was sleeping, calm and serene, as a person who has no remorse or fear of being exposed. I took her phone, and my heart was pounding like it was going to jump out of my chest. I knew I was doing something wrong, but there was no right or wrong at that moment. There was only one thing: to find out the truth. I scrolled through the correspondence, and if only you could see what I found there. There were dozens of messages, ironic jokes, photos, phrases like "you're back in that dress that's driving me crazy," voicemails where he laughs and calls her his morning dose of dopamine. It wasn't just flirting. It was a connection. Real, intimate, emotional. They met, and not only in the office. There were mentions of our room in the notes, and later I realized that it was about our guest bedroom. Yes, he came to my house. At that moment, I could have woken her up, screamed, smashed her phone, cursed, packed her things. But I didn't do any of that. I just put the phone back in its place and lay down next to it. I stared at the ceiling until morning, and I thought, what if I don't leave? And if you stay? And play her own game? Since that morning, when I found out everything, my life has been divided into before and after. But unlike the classic story, I didn't leave. I wasn't brawling. I didn't say a word. I just started playing. It wasn't a decision made in anger. It was a cold, calculated strategy. I realized that if I wanted her to feel all that her treacherous choice had done to me, I needed to keep quiet and watch. It all started with habits. I didn't change my behavior. I kept asking how the session went. I still hugged her, brought her coffee in the morning, and wrote love in messengers when I was at work. I even bought her a new perfume, the one she supposedly accidentally saw in an advertisement but didn't dare to buy. I gave her what she was betraying at that very moment, and it made me not a victim, but something much scarier, a shadow behind her back, a mirror of her lies. She, in turn, felt more and more free. She came home more and more often with her hair a little disheveled. She said more and more often that therapy was delayed or he had emergency patients in front of me. And then the smell. Someone else's perfume, not hers, not mine. I memorized each one, literally sniffing the collar of her coat while she was taking a shower. Sometimes I even found hair, blonde male. I didn't wash them. I was taking pictures. A week later, I bought a voice recorder. I hid it in our guest bedroom, under the bottom drawer of the bedside table, where she had never looked in all the years of marriage. I was sure that if their room was exactly the one they wrote about, then sooner or later I would receive confirmation. I was not mistaken. 2 weeks later, footsteps, her voice, and then it could be heard on the recording. Then a whisper, then moans. I listened to it holding my breath, feeling a chill pass through my body. It was like watching a movie starring your wife, and the plot is your own nightmare unfolding in reality. I started collecting everything, screenshots of correspondence, audio from a dictaphone, bank card statements where she paid for consultations that cost clearly more than regular sessions. Of course, I realized that the therapist was either a fraud or had simply completely lost his professional boundaries. But it wasn't just him. The thing was, Emma was deliberately wiping her feet on what we had been building together for 10 years. And she did it with a face full of confidence that everything was under control. It was important. She had to be sure. Otherwise, my plan wouldn't have worked. I became the initiator of romance. I suggested going to the mountains for the weekend, our second honeymoon. We rented a cabin. I lit a fireplace. We drank wine, looked at old photos, and she cried with happiness. She said, "I'm so glad we found each other again." And I was smiling and thinking, just a little more, Emma. Just a little more. I even gave her a surprise trip for a massage on the same day, when I knew she usually dated him. I was wondering if she would choose me. She said yes, and then that she had something urgent. She chose him. I wasn't upset. I was glad. The deeper she went into her lies, the sweeter the fall would be. And so, after 6 months of my playing, the day came that I chose for the finale. Our anniversary. 10 years. I've arranged a dinner in a restaurant that she had always dreamed of visiting. I've booked a private lounge. I invited her parents, my parents, and her sister, who, by the way, has never been particularly friendly to me. Her friends, everyone who could play minor but important roles in this play. Even our mutual friends, who haven't seen us in years. Emma didn't suspect anything. She was thrilled. She behaved like the perfect wife. Gentle, radiant. I ordered a new dress for myself. I did my hair. I was sure it was an evening of love. And it really was an evening of love. Only the love of truth. The evening started off perfectly. People were laughing, raising glasses, taking pictures. The whole atmosphere literally screamed. A happy couple celebrating a decade of love. And Emma, of course, shone in the center of this performance, as an actress, confident that she had won the main role, and the applause in the finale was already guaranteed. I let her bask in the attention. I brought her wine, straightened her curls, kissed her hand. I played my part until the last act, as I promised myself 6 months ago. When we moved on to the main course, I got up from my seat and raised my glass. Everyone was quiet. I knew that everyone was waiting for something warm, sentimental, maybe even a little boring. But they didn't understand that I wasn't going to talk to them. I was going to talk to her, and to make sure she understands every word. 10 years, I began, is a long time. During this time, you can build a house, raise a child, learn a language, or lose everything. 10 years is the time it takes for a person to completely change another person, inspire support, or break. I always thought our marriage was home. Not a luxurious palace, but strong and honest. One where you can take shelter from any hurricane. I saw her smile. Her eyes were glowing, for the time being. But a house, I continued, can't be built on a lie. Because over time, the cracks become too deep. And one day the ceiling collapses. I am grateful to fate for these 10 years, because it was in them that I learned who you are. I've learned what you're capable of, and how easily you can substitute caring for habit, loyalty for convenience, and love for manipulation. The room became quieter. Someone had already started exchanging glances. Emma tensed. I saw her hand slowly reach for the glass. Take a sip. She realized that something was going wrong, but it was too late. Today I'm not just celebrating an anniversary. I'm saying goodbye, with a man who no longer exists. I want to show you all what kind of trace betrayal can leave if it is hushed up for a long time. Emma, I turned to face her. I know everything. I know about him, about therapy, about the nights in our bedroom, about how you looked into my eyes in the morning after you spent the night with him and told me that you're just having a hard day. Her face paled. She opened her mouth, but I didn't let her speak. I took out the envelope. Thick, dense, tied with a golden ribbon. It contained copies of correspondence, photographs, extracts, and audio files from a dictaphone. Everything that I've been collecting for 6 months. Silently, I placed it in front of her father. You might want to know how your daughter is treated, especially considering that you paid for some of the sessions through family insurance, considering that her therapist was breaking all imaginable boundaries, considering that he is a married man. The silence in the hall became ringing. Someone dropped a fork. Her sister had already taken off her glasses and was looking at me with an expression that I will never forget. Not anger, not judgment. Rather, it's a quiet, shocked respect. Emma tried to stand up, but her legs were shaking. I'm not filing for divorce today. I said calmly. I'll serve it tomorrow. Calmly, without tantrums. But I'll leave everything I've collected to a lawyer, so that he can figure out who else owes compensation to whom. And yes, Emma, that prenuptial agreement that you asked me to not discuss at the dawn of our wedding, I still have it, with your signature. And it says that in case of betrayal on your part, I get full control over the property and financial assets. It's amazing how little you read what you signed when you loved me. I put down my glass. My speech is over, but the theater has only just begun. Emma began to cry, soundlessly, as do those who realize that they have lost a war in which they did not even know they were participating. People were getting up from the tables. Someone was hugging my mother. Someone was trying to calm her parents down. I just walked out of the room, calmly, without looking back, not triumphantly, because revenge is not a cry. It is the silence in which the other person hears the truth for the first time.
Share your opinion in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and like. Click on the bell to not miss stories from me.